Yeah, thank you, Martina, and thank each and every one of you who is here today at the Shopware Community Dev Day. And unfortunately, the first mistake may happen in the agenda of today because the talk is a little bit more general than it says in the slide. So it's not about just the admin, but it's about an appealing future. Word pun may or may not be intended. So first, let's all get on the same page because some new faces and it's getting recorded so that we have all the same start. I will do a little bit of a history lesson or present to you the current status. So let's say you want to build an app and you need icons in your app. For that, we have the Meteor Icon Kit, which contains over 750 icons designed by our Shopware designers. And those are the same icons that we use in the administration. So if your app needs icons, you have the Icon Kit. Next, we have the Meteor Component Library. Announced at the last SCD, we now have the first stable version of this component library, and it's built with Storybook, which is for building component libraries, obviously. And you can check out the components there and configure them and try them out, and then you just can copy the whole code over to your application, and you can use the same components from the administration inside your app without having the whole administration at your hand, just the component library, and you can include and use what you need. So we have icons and we have components. Now we need something for logic and extension. For this, we have the admin extension SDK in petto, and this is a software development kit, obviously, but the admin extension SDK works this way, that you specify a main URL in your app manifest, which is in your app binary, and this URL will be rendered as a hidden iframe inside the administration. It's not to be seen, but it's rendered, and therefore the code on that page will still be executed. And when you execute the JavaScript code in your iframe, you can then talk to the administration and do certain things like adding menu items or adding a whole page, add action buttons, which is also possible via the manifest. So everything that's possible via the manifest, you can do with the admin extension SDK, but on a programmatic level. So the manifest file is static, but on certain occasions or when you need it, you could add an action button which does a certain functionality that you need. And the admin extension SDK is not only for manipulating the administration, but you can also query data. So we have the same repository features from the administration and the PHP counterpart in the admin extension SDK. So if your app needs data, you can fetch it in the same way with the same criteria and everything inside your app. Of course, you still need the right app permissions, so we do not decouple this from the manifest because this would be a security risk. But if you have the right permissions, you could query for languages or products or whatever you may need. So we have the icons in the icon kit, we have the component library, and we can extend with logic, the administration at least. Now we would need something on the storefront PHP side because apps are lacking the access to the PHP stack, and we have app scripts for this. So app scripts are file-based hooks that you ship with your app binary, and when we are talking about app binaries, we are talking about a zip file with your manifest and the other files that you need to ship. And those app scripts are placed in specific locations, and based on the locations and the directory structure they are in, they are executed at specific timings in this stack. For example, here, I think it is a navigation page hook. So whenever a navigation page is loaded, this script would execute, and you have certain services available in this script. So what we are doing here is querying for a custom entity SCD participant and adding this to the page object. So this would be executed in the PHP stack without the app being able to manipulate the whole PHP stack. So this could work for the storefront, and other hooks. You can see all those hooks inside the documentation. And then we have custom entities, because a lot of feedback we received was, my app just has this one entity and all the rest of the logic is not really on my server side as well. I only need the server for registration and the handshake stuff with the Shopware app. Why can't I put entities inside Shopware? And this is the answer to this problem, because you can just specify the entities as you need them in an XML file that you also ship with your app binary or zip. And those custom entities will be automatically brought into the Shopware database. So we scan over those files, new custom entity, go through the custom entity, and then check which fields need to be added. And this works with updates, deleting the custom entities. You can put associations to Shopware-based entities in them, and this is all built into a simple XML file, which is just crazy if you ask me. So one benefit of plugins is that you can develop plugins just for yourself or just for your agency and just for that one specific customer that needs this specific feature, and there's no use of putting this plugin into the store because nobody else would be able to use it. Now with private apps, you have the same, but for Shopware SaaS. So if you have a SaaS shop customer owner or are a SaaS shop customer owner, you can build your app and then upload it just for your SaaS environment into the Shopware cloud. So now that we know the toolbox that is available to us to build apps, we should talk about the elephant in the room. So should you app everything? And the answer to this is simple, but not yet so simple. So currently we have this symbiosis of, or maybe not a symbiosis, but you know what I mean. Plugins are existing and apps are existing. And this is important. So if there's one thing that you take away from this talk right here, take away that plugins and apps are independent, and apps are not meant to replace plugins one by one. This is what you need to take away from this talk if there's anything you can take away. So plugins and apps are coexisting. At the moment, will be for a long time probably, and both offer a somewhat unique feature set. So the app functionalities are not present in plugins, but a plugin can achieve the same functionality in more different ways because you have access to the whole PHP stack and database, etc. So neither of them aim to replace the other. Now, what can't you do with an app? This is currently, some of these points maybe will stay true for longer time. So, as I already mentioned, apps can't execute PHP code directly, at least. That's with the exception for app scripts, but you have no full access to Symfony, to the PHP stack, and if you listened to Jens talk closely, you know why, because there should be no shared access across instances in the Shopware cloud, and apps are obviously built for cloud and on-premise. In the cloud, we cannot give you access to PHP, therefore apps don't have access to PHP. Same goes for database. There's no direct database access for apps. You can use the API or certain app script services or the SDK to talk to the database, but you cannot say from an app, hey, I want this table to be created or modify a foreign key or stuff like that. Apps are not allowed to do that. Similar to the file system, so obviously the same reason goes for the file system that goes for PHP. This is entirely SaaS-based. So what you can do with plugins, and what we see multiple times, is that a manufacturer puts a minimum version of a plugin into the store, which then may be free, and then with a paid version of that plugin, you will override certain parts of that plugin. and those for changing the functionality of the base plugin. This is not possible with apps because apps are encapsulated. So now that we know what tools we have to build apps, what the differences are, that plugins and apps are coexisting, we should tell you again once why we love apps. So if you attended the last SCD, you may already know that example, and I promise I will keep this one short. So take this example app. This is the Store Finder example app. And what it does, it brings an entity into the Shopware system, which is a store. The store can have an address, opening times, additional information, such as email, etc. And those stores will then be listed in the storefront footer. So to do this, a plugin would need 640 lines of code with everything that is available, and this does not include a admin UI. So for both, for the plugin and for the app, there's no admin UI. The entity is in the system. In the plugin, it's a real entity injected into the core, and in the app, it's a custom entity, and the information is fed to the system via API. So we have 640 lines of code for the plugin, and an app would need 140 lines of code. So that's roughly a saving of 80%. This can be a saving of 80% of your work and time, which in most cases mean your money. Now, of course, the hosting and the learning of the app system, if you don't know it yet, is not included in this step. But I think that's purely fair because at one point you also learned the plugin system, and that's also not included there either. So the learning is not included in both of these comparisons. Now the next thing why we love apps so much is, if you take a look at the Shopware stack, it's pretty complex, right? We have PHP with the Symfony framework, which utilizes Twig. We have SCSS, normal CSS, TypeScript, JavaScript, Twig.js, blah, 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 and so on. So a lot of technology that if you don't know Shopware yet, you have to learn. And you might not know any of this. So most likely you know one or two of these, or even everything. But the key feature with apps is that you don't need to learn this, because in your app stack, you can choose whatever you want. You can build an app just with Golang, or with Rust, or with Java, or Python, or I don't know, some sort of assembly if you are a maniac. But you can choose it. And that's the one thing I probably like most about apps. So what we have seen in the past is that it's incredibly easy to implement existing services into Shopware with an app. So Shopware hosts all the data and triggers events, and you have this existing service over here. For example, like we all know them, you can choose T-shirts, coffee mugs, and phone cases and put your design on it and then order it. This app actually exists in the store. So what they have done is they've taken the whole UI and their business logic they already had, rendered it with iframes in the administration, and then through these special events and hooks, they pushed the created products so you can configure them on their UI, and then you say, okay, I have these 3 T-shirts, those 2 coffee mugs, and those will then be sent via the API into Shopware as products with pictures and can be sold in your storefront. So existing service, minimal change on their side, and it's integrated into Shopware. And of course, there are other benefits to this. For example, you are less dependent on the Shopware release cycle, because when Shopware releases a major version, every single one of you who runs plugins in the store is probably going crazy and trying to keep them compatible, and oh God, what have they broken again? With apps, this no longer really applies, because you have the benefit of using this dedicated stable API and not touching every PHP file possible. Of course, maybe sometimes in the future, app feature will be deprecated or the syntax may change, but this is a significant smaller amount of code you touch compared to the whole Shopware stack that you are allowed to work with as a plugin. So essentially, because of that, you also have less compatibility work to do. Because, for example, let's say with the admin extension SDK, you say you want to add a menu item. You would do this with a plugin by using our services, extending a menu, whatever, and with an app by calling a SDK function. Now we go ahead and rewrite the whole admin menu, and with Shopware 6.8, we completely break it. Just an example, don't take my word. Then, with the plugin, you have to figure out what we rewrote, how to get the menu item in it back again, because maybe the whole services are gone and whatnot. With the SDK, you don't care, because you just say, I want to add a menu item, and as long as it pops up, it does not interest you that we rewrote the whole menu. So migration can also be done step by step, because you as the app provider know what Shopware versions your customers are running. And for example, let's stick with the version 6.8. We introduce a new app feature where you say, oh, this significantly improves my app workflow and I can utilize this. You can then utilize this feature with all Shopware clients that already are on 6.8. And for the other clients, 6.4, 6.5, you can stick to the old behavior you already have. So you have this information on your site and can gain benefit from it. Now let's try to do some fortune telling and take a look into the future. So first of all, a little statement that probably got along the talk anyway. So we see the importance of apps, and therefore all new features will be considered apps first. And this is a Shopware promise I'm giving to you right now. So every new feature that will be done, we will consider it apps first. Why is this? Because we were not really called out, but in the community, there was the saying, yeah, I wish that Shopware built their, I don't know, Shopware 5 premium plugins as apps, then they would see that this is all not possible, etc., etc. So there were those sayings, and clearly they are not wrong. If we try to take, I don't know, any Shopware 5 premium plugin, most likely there will some things not be possible currently with apps. So we need to improve here. And this got clear to us is that we need to move faster forward and therefore utilize the app feature more ourselves. So this is the statement. And then about shaping the future, which we can do after this slide, we can do a little Q&A maybe, because we have some time left, and Niklas already told me that I could be overdue up to 30 minutes, which I don't plan to do, but yeah. So shaping the future, of course, a little bit buzzword bingo if you want to say so, but we have to reduce the complexity that the app system gets easier to use, even easier than it is today. We need to increase the adaptability so that the app system fits more of your use cases. And we have to stay one community. We need, as Martina mentioned as well, we need to receive your feedback through the new feedback system, for example. And we have to work together to make the best out of this app system. Yeah, and with this, I would really be eager to answer your questions, maybe. I'm certain that there will be some.
Are there any plans on making hosting the application side of the app easier?
Yeah, I knew this question was coming. I saw it. Yeah, we are talking about this intensely internal. Of course, I can't make any promises here, but we are aware that the hosting of the app is still a struggle for quite a lot of you. So we have this on our mind, and we plan to make anything happen to make this easier.
Did the last slide mean that all of your future plugins, which you develop yourself, extensions, will be apps?
We will try so, yes. That's the plan.
I have a few questions. The first question is, you say that this is the future and something like this, but at the moment, there's no plugin or app which I can check out, example app or example plugin for the administration SDK, for example. In the last call with my Shopware partner, I don't know what, she told me I can use the admin SDK. So after this, I looked up the documentation, and the documentation is a joke for me.
Okay. Why
I-
is that?
The first thing is there's no example app or no example plugin which I can check out. This would be very nice.
Maybe there was some sort of time overlapping because we have an example plugin and app built using all
the
the features
side?
of the SDK.
Okay, then this is very good. But the second thing is when I want to migrate my plugins, let's begin the other side. The plan is to migrate first the existing plugins to the admin SDK, because you put all the existing Vue.js components as private. So I think it's the thing that in the next major version or whatever, it's not possible anymore to extend it. And this is the thing I want to migrate to the admin SDK. But for example, is it possible to manipulate existing fields, for example? Because this would be very important for me. I have not the plugins which have ever their own administration or something like this. There are many cases where I have to manipulate existing fields, and I guess this is not possible, no?
The technology is here, so we can retrieve data updates, for example, from an app and push this to the Shopware administration state that you are seeing. But I'm not quite sure what you mean by manipulating fields.
Yes,
maybe
for example, versus I have the field for the versus meta description, and I want to put a counter below. So I have to override the field and versus prepend, append versus this field.
Yeah. Overwriting fields most likely is not possible at the moment, but we have essentially the App Extension SDK works with something that is called location IDs and positions. And you have to check, you can check this with the Vue developer extension. If you are in dev mode in the administration, you can check and list all the points where you can hook your iframes into the administration. And you need to check if there's one below the field, which is most likely not the case, but we could change this and do a PR for this, that we have the possibility to add something beneath the field. Yeah.
Okay, but there is an update versus for the documentation which is available now, when I understand it right.
We have
yes, because I've checked this for a month or something like this, and yes, it was not really possible to work with it.
Mm-hmm. So we updated the documentation. We are working on this all the time, and there's the example plugin which uses all the features of the extension SDK. More questions, or?
I think we have to cut the Q&A.
Okay, if we have to cut the Q&A, just come to me afterwards. I'm wearing my name tag, Sebastian, and you can talk to me about the SDK, apps, plugins, whatever you like. Yeah.
Thank you.